Hello everyone, Ace here, and today's video is going to be about the subject of journalism, and more specifically how some journalists have been reacting towards the recent theatrical release of Sound of Freedom. Specifically, there is a narrative being pushed around the notion that this film is secretly a propaganda film meant to push conspiracy theories. And to demonstrate this, here are two separate articles, one from the Guardian and one from Jezebel. The Guardian article is titled Sound of Freedom, the QAnon-adjacent thriller seducing America, written by Charles Bramesco, while the Jezebel article is titled Sound of Freedom is an anti-child trafficking fantasy fit for QAnon, written by Rich Jeswick. The fact that this film presents an anti-child trafficking message is apparently enough to get it labeled as a QAnon propaganda film absolutely sounds like a case of both The Guardian and Jezebel telling on themselves, or at least the journalists for those articles telling on themselves. The fact that the journalist from The Guardian talked about how the rest of the movie theater that he was in appears to have disagreed with his sentiment towards the film, despite the theater being in, as he described it, quote, the liberal Sodom of Manhattan, unquote, that seems to really highlight just how out of touch and extreme many of these journalists actually are. It's worth noting, by the way, that both of the articles that I have presented attempt to smear the nonprofit organization associated with the film, specifically Operation Underground Railroad, namely by trying to argue that the organization is not a reputable charity organization, despite the fact that Charity Navigator gave the organization its top rating. The Guardian also decided to say that the group has been criticized as, quote, arrogant, unethical, and illegal by the authorities, unquote. What is not mentioned is the fact that the authorities were one individual, specifically Anne Gallagher, who is admittedly a key figure from Australia, however, implying that she represents several different governments or multiple authority figures is highly misleading at best, especially when you realize that she said these things about the organization all the way back in 2015, which inevitably leads to the uncomfortable question of if this organization was indeed so illegal, then why hasn't it been arrested and broken up since? Especially when you consider the fact that Operation Underground Railroad actively operates with law enforcement. I suspect that this is a question that simply is going to be ignored by anyone trying to defend Jezebel or The Guardian here. And on that subject, another way that both articles try to smear the film is by pointing out things that the lead actor has said off-screen. Things that both articles claim support the QAnon conspiracy theory. Because as we all know, every single film in history has automatically pushed whatever agenda the main actor believes in at all times without any exceptions whatsoever. That's what you would have to assume to believe that the film itself is directly pushing that message. So ironically, the fact that both of these articles is trying to push the notion that this film is a deliberate propaganda piece for QAnon, they're effectively pushing a conspiracy theory about the origins and purpose of the film itself. Both Charles Bramesco and Rich Jeswick are conspiracy theorists for writing these articles. Now that itself is ironic, but what I would say is the real issue here is the fact that the only evidence that both of them can provide from the film itself that it is somehow a QAnon propaganda piece is that it's an anti-child trafficking film. And that, if nothing else, is a damning statement about both of these journalists, as well as the ideology that they espouse. Now, for those curious, I will be leaving links in the description below to archives of both of these articles so you can check them out for yourself if you should so desire. But in any case, this has been Ace. Hope to see you guys again soon. Take care. Ace out.